Shalom, shalom. Let's start off by giving all honor, glory, and praise to the Most High God, Yahweh. I do so in the name of His only begotten Son, Yahweh Shai, who the world calls Jesus. Your brother Mama Wild of Vegas, coming at y'all with another lesson that the Most High put on my spirit to go over. I'm a little under the weather, so y'all bear with me, but the lesson He put on my spirit to go over was the dietary law. Due to a lot of people, mainly Christianity, believing that the dietary law is done away with. And the other reason is because I was having a conversation with my brother, Mama Yah, in regards to Jemima pancakes. And it has an ingredient in it called mono and diglycerides. And this ingredient either derives from pork, beef, or plant oils. But sometimes it's hard to figure out what mono and diglyceride is being, what product is being used in that. So it's up to us to do our research and go hard to see if this product that we consuming actually has something that's unclean in it. So at the end of this video, I'm gonna have a list of all the ingredients that they use to hide pork, pretty much, like gelatin, lard, all that stuff. So I pray that y'all edified through the spirit. All right, let's go to the book of Leviticus, chapter 11, and verse number 47. And it reads, "You must be careful to distinguish between what is rightfully clean and unclean, between animals that may be eaten and those that may not." So I got brothers to this day that have called me and asked if certain fish or certain items are clean and not. I myself, I be in the aisles at the store looking at the back of the ingredients to make sure I'm not going off for a good minute. I even whip my phone out to make sure that I'm searching the right words that I'm unfamiliar with to make sure that I'm not going off. And the Most High said it in this verse that you must be careful to distinguish what is clean and unclean. Sometimes you'll see signs on the food showing that it's kosher or not. But before we get into that, let's go to the verse that people go to try to justify that we can eat anything. And then we'll get into what we cannot eat. All right, let's go to 1 Timothy chapter 4 and verse number 3. And it reads, "Forbidding to marry and commanding to abstain from meats which God hath created to be received with thanksgiving of them which believe and know the truth. For every creature of God is good and nothing to be refused, if it be received with thanksgiving." So what we had during this time were certain sects of Israelites, mainly the Essenes, who were pushing vegetarianism and veganism as if it were mandatory, treating it like it was law. So verse 1, if you go to the top, the context, Paul says it's doctrines of devils because they were twisting God's words. I've got a brother, shout out to my brother Stokes, who personally chose to stop eating meat. The only time he eats meat is the lamb on Passover. But he's not telling anyone it's mandatory to stop eating meat. It's simply a personal choice. So in context, it clarified that it's not mandatory to be a vegan. We can eat meat as long as it's lawful. That's what Paul was trying to get to them at that time. Get them to understand. All right, let's go to another verse that tends to get misused often and butchered very badly. Let's go to Acts chapter 10 and verse number 10. And it reads, "And he became very hungry and would have eaten, but while they made ready, he fell into a trance." So while Peter was praying, he got hungry and he fell into a trance. Verse 13. "And there came a voice to him, 'Rise, Peter, kill and eat.' But Peter said, 'Not so, Lord, for I have never eaten anything that is common or unclean.'" So Peter is confused. He knows the law says not to eat unclean animals. Peter knows that the law is not done away with. Peter also knows that God doesn't change. So he wouldn't change the laws that he put in place that Peter's been following all this time. Let's drop down to 15. "And the voice spake unto him again the second time, 'What God hath cleansed, that call not thou common.'" So people go here and say God made those animals clean, not realizing that this isn't even talking about animals. It's talking about people. Let's go to verse 28. Acts 10 and 28. Later on down in the verse. And it reads, and he said unto them, ye know, Acts 10 and 28, and it reads, and he said unto them, ye know how that is unlawful thing for a man that is a Jew to keep company or come unto another nation, but God hath shewed me that I should not call any man common or unclean. First and foremost, there's no law in the Torah that says you cannot keep company with non-Jews. This was a man-made custom, oral traditions of the Pharisees and the Essenes in Judea. This is an environment that Peter was raised in, but now the Most High is showing him you can't call your brothers unclean and follow the traditions of men. That's what Acts 10 is talking about. It's not talking about food, it's talking about people. And that brings me to my next scripture. Another one that people often use in attempt to justify breaking God's dietary law, which is Mark 7 and 15. And it reads, there is nothing from without a man that entering into him can defile him, but the things which come out of him, those are they that defile the man. So they isolate this verse. They don't read the context. And without understanding, you'll assume this means that they can indulge in consuming unclean animals. But let's get the context to get what Christ was saying. All right, let's go to Mark chapter 7 and verse 1. And it reads, then came together unto him the Pharisees and certain of the scribes which came from Jerusalem. And when they saw some of his disciples eat bread with defiled, that is to say, with unwashing hands, they found fault. So when the scribes and Pharisees came, they saw the disciples eating the bread without washing their hands, and they found fault. But let's keep reading. And it reads, for the Pharisees and all the Jews, except they wash their hands off, eat not holding the tradition of elders. So they didn't eat till they washed their hands and treated this tradition as if it was law. For time's sake, let's drop down to verse 7. Howbeit in vain do they worship me, teaching for doctrines the commandments of men. So this wasn't a commandment from the Most High. It was a man's custom. That's like going into somebody's house and they say, hey, bro, take your shoes off before you enter my house. That's a rule he made for his household. But he can't go into the Bible and show you that you should take your shoes off before you enter his home. That's just a rule that he made. Same thing in this context. Let's go to verse 8. For laying aside the commandment of God, ye hold the tradition of men, as the washing of pots and cups, and many other such like things ye do. And he said unto them, full well ye reject the commandments of God, that ye may keep your own tradition. So the point was, they were eating without washing their hands. And Christ was letting them know, if you eat without your hands being washed, it doesn't defile you. But the things that come out of your heart defiles you. And we know, pursuant to the book of Jeremiah 17:9, that the heart is desperately wicked. Right? And Christ himself in Matthew 5 and 17, he said he didn't come to destroy the law or the prophets till all be fulfilled. So let's go into a prophet's prophecy and see if it was fulfilled. Let's go to Isaiah chapter 66 and verse number 15. And it reads, for behold, the Lord will come with fire and with chariots like a whirlwind, to render his anger with fury and his rebuke with flames of fire. Obviously, this hasn't happened yet. But let's keep reading. Verse 16. For by fire and by his sword will the Lord plead with all flesh, and the slain of the Lord shall be many. So this prophecy never came to pass. And Christ said he didn't come to destroy the prophecies. So let's see who's going to be slain by the Lord. Verse 17. They that sanctify themselves and purify themselves in the gardens behind one tree in the midst, eating swine's flesh, and the abomination and the mouse shall be consumed together, saith the Lord. So the Most High is going to kill people that are consuming swine, which is pig. This prophecy alone shows you that we still need to be keeping the Most High's dietary law. And it's not just pig we shouldn't be consuming. Let's go to the dietary law and see what we can and cannot consume. Let's go to Leviticus chapter 11 and verse 1. I'm going to get this in the NIV. It's a little shorter. And it reads, The Lord said to Moses and Aaron, Say to the Israelites, of all the animals that live on land, these are the ones you may eat. Verse 3, You may eat any animal that has divided hoof and that chews the cud. So chews the cud means an animal chews its food, swallows it, then later brings it back up into his mouth to chew it again before swallowing it for good. Let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 14 and verse number 4 to see what animals chew the cud. It's Deuteronomy 14 and verse number 4. You may eat these animals: cattle, which is cows, bulls, oxen, sheep, goats. Verse 5. Deer, wild sheep, wild goats, or antelopes. Verse 6. Any animal that have divided hoofs and that also chews the cud. All right, let's go back to Leviticus 11. We're going to go to 4. We'll get this in the GNT for time's sake. And it reads, But you must not eat camels, rock badgers, or rabbits. They must be considered unclean. They chew the cud, but do not have divided hoofs. So these animals don't have divided hoofs. Their feet, hoofs are together, right? Let's drop down to verse 7. This is Leviticus chapter 11 and verse number 7. And it reads, Do not eat pigs. They must be considered unclean. They have divided hoofs, but do not chew the cud. The pig, this is a very nasty animal. He has a job. He gets fed food scraps and farm leftovers to help reduce waste. But truthfully, a pig would eat anything. I seen a video of a pig eating its own baby and its own feces. The pig eats garbage, which can introduce parasites. It's over 1,000 videos on YouTube right now that show people buying pork chops from the store and pouring Coca-Cola over it, and worms come out.
After hours of soaking the USA premium pork in Coca-Cola, we have all kinds of disgusting parasites that have come to surface. Now, at first, they don't look like much, but when you pick them up, they kind of wrap themselves around. They wrap themselves around.
It's a video I seen on World Star about 2 years ago. There was a man, he ate some undercooked pork and died due to an extreme parasitic infection. It was all through his body and even reached his brain, showing you that this is a very filthy animal. But ultimately, the Most High said, don't eat pork. And when it dies, don't touch it. Let's go to Leviticus chapter 11 and verse 8. Do not eat these animals or even touch their dead bodies. They are unclean. So at the end of this video, I'm going to put a list together of ingredients and products that can be made from pigs, but aren't labeled pig or from swan. They have different names like gelatin. Let's go to verse 9. And it reads, "These you may eat of all that are in the waters. Everything in the waters that have fins and scales, whether it be in the seas or the rivers, you may eat." So whatever has fins and scales, the Most High said you can consume it. So bass, snapper, salmon, tilapia, trout, sea bass, tuna, and more. You have to look it up before you purchase it. But if it has fins and scales, the Most High says you can consume it. Verse 10. "But anything in the seas or in the rivers that does not have fins and scales, of the swarming creatures in the waters and of the living creatures that are in the waters, is detestable to you." So everything that does not have fins and scales, like shrimp, crab, lobster, scallops, crawfish, catfish, clams, and oysters, because it's just like a pig. These bottom feeders have a job. And our people treat these roaches of the sea like a delicacy. They're underwater trash collectors. They keep the waters balanced and clean. But we throw some butter on them and go to work.
The same places where the people like to be. The reason that they like the same places that our shrimp do is the shrimp are keeping it clean. And they're sweeping off the sediment from the bottom. They're turning a lot of that material into their own bodies, and that the shrimp are able to use a lot of things that would otherwise pile up and be kind of slimy and not very attractive to swimmers. And so all that sweeping and all that movement that they do is really keeping things great for recreation. And these shrimp do clean up the water. They're filter feeding out a lot of organic material and turning it into shrimp, which turns into fish food and various other kind of things within the food web. And they're working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Let's go to Leviticus chapter 11 and verse number 11. And it reads, "You shall regard them as detestable. You shall not eat any of their flesh, and you shall not detest their carcasses." Anything living in the water that does not have fins and scales is to be regarded as unclean to you. It's unclean, and the Most High said, don't eat it. Plain and simple. All right, switching back over to Leviticus chapter 11 and verse number 13. I'm going to get it in the GNT because it condenses 7 verses into just one. And it reads, "You must not eat any of the following birds: eagles, owls, hawks, falcons, buzzards, vultures, crows, ostriches, seagulls, storks, herons, pelicans, cormorants, hoopoes, and or bats." These birds are scavengers or predators. They survive by eating dead animals and garbage as well. I don't see too many people eating these animals, though I've heard of somebody eating an ostrich before. But the Most High says stay away from it. Let's go to verse 20. "All winged insects are unclean, except those that hop. You may eat locusts, crickets, or grasshoppers." So we can eat locusts, crickets, and grasshoppers. I know the tribe of Issachar, the so-called Mexicans, be getting down with the crickets. They call it chapulinis. And the Most High said we can consume them. So I'll get it in for sure. But I also ain't going out there looking for the chapulinis either. Verse 23. "But all other small things
Here,
that have wings
just
and also crawl
having
must be considered unclean." So roaches, beetles, mosquitoes, flies, and other small things with wings are unclean. verse number 29, Leviticus 11 and 29. And it reads, moles, rats, mice, and lizards must be considered unclean. So no rats and no lizards. Let's go to Leviticus chapter 20 and verse number 25. And it reads, you must therefore make a distinction between ceremonially clean and unclean animals, and between clean and unclean birds. You must not defile yourselves by eating any unclean animal or bird or creature that scurries along the ground. I have identified them as being unclean for you. So be careful, as the law just stated, to make sure you're keeping the dietary law. And also be careful not to eat food sacrificed to idols. That's another point showing you we must keep the dietary law. The apostles were teaching this in the book of Acts, right? Let's get that. Let's go to Acts chapter 15 and verse number 28. And it reads, for it seemed good to the Holy Ghost and to us to lay upon you no greater burden than these necessary things. So when the apostles was teaching people, it was similar to how we do it when we go out and tell people who they are and get them a few laws to start off with. Not all of the laws, because it'd be a lot to process at once. So we'll just let them know, hey, you can't eat shrimp, crab, lobster. You got to keep your beard. You got to keep your fringes. And then that's a good starting point. But there's more laws than that. And that's what the apostles were doing back in the day. And let's see what they were not trying to burden our brothers with. Verse 29. That ye abstain from meats offered to idols, and from blood, and from things strangled, and from fornication, from which if ye keep ourselves, ye shall do well. Fare ye well. So if the dietary law was done away with by Christ, why are the apostles teaching it? Let's go to the Torah to show that this was in fact in the law. Let's go to Exodus chapter 34 and verse number 15. Excuse me. This is Exodus chapter 34 and verse 15. Do not make any treaties with the people of the country, because when they worship their pagan gods and sacrifice to them, they will invite you to join them, and you will be tempted to eat the food they offer to their gods. So you must stay away from the food that's sacrificed to idols. Me and my rib used to go to this hibachi restaurant, and over the entire restaurant was a big Buddha statue. Even at the entrance, there was one you could give money to for fortune. Even those fortune cookies, that's considered sorcery or divination, because you looking at it to tell you your future and you hoping and banking on that. That's against what the Most High has commanded us to do. We're supposed to be holy, set apart, looking at Him for guidance and instructions, right? All right, let's go to Leviticus chapter 17 and verse 10. And it reads, and if a native Israelite or a foreigner living among you eats or drinks blood in any form, I will turn against that person and cut him off from the community of your people. So don't do like the Africans and drink the blood. It's not our culture. The Most High just said that He's going to cut you off from the community. Verse 12. That is why I have said to the people of Israel, you must never eat or drink blood, neither you nor the foreigners living amongst you. Let's go to Leviticus chapter 17 and verse number 13. And it reads, and if any native Israelite or foreigner living among you goes hunting and kills an animal or a bird that is approved for eating, he must drain its blood and cover it in the earth. They couldn't kill the animal and just let the blood be exposed. They had to bury it in the earth or the ground as a sign of respect for life, right? Let's go to Leviticus 22 and verse number 8. And it reads, he shall not eat the meat of any animal that has died a natural death or has been killed by a wild animal. it will make him unclean. I am the Lord. So if you see a cow or deer that was killed by a bear or any other animal, it's forbidden for us to, or died of natural causes, old age or disease, then we cannot consume it. But we can sell it to a non-Israelite, right? So just like the law said, y'all be careful on what y'all consuming. It's a lot of things out there, a lot of products that have a lot of pork or items in it that we're not supposed to be consuming, like wine. I just figured out a few years ago, wine, they use pork to filter it and make it look clear and get out all these like floating particles that are in there. Same thing that they do with Jello. So just be careful, y'all. And I'm gonna put the list right here so y'all can read it. Call Allah Yahweh Bahashim Mashiach Yahweh Shah. And I'm gonna say Shalom.
Prayers not gonna make you a saint.